Alrighty, hello and welcome back. We are... Okay. Okay, anyways. We are now back with Final Fantasy XVI. We're gonna speak with Harpocrates about the continued legends of lore and continue from here.
My knowledge is yours. If you have a question for me, I should be happy to answer it.
So we finished with the lay of the land. Now on to mysteries of the realm. Sorry, excuse me. The Mother Crystals. Though the people of Valisthea rely on the crystal mined from these mountains in their everyday lives and flock to the aether-rich lands around them in pursuit of their blessing, Sid posits that it is in the fact that the Mother Crystals and their ability to draw aether from the earth that is the reason for the Deadlands' advance. The few who learn the truth are hunted down by those in the position of power, those whose power rests on their control of the crucial resource. Enormous glassy mountains, 5 of which tower over the lands of Valisthea. They are the source of all the crystals that the people of the Twins rely on in their everyday lives. Not only that, but the lands surrounding them are rich with aether, making the magics the crystals cast even more potent. For these reasons, great nations have sprung up around each mother crystal and have long warred with each other for possession of their blessings. So, they're a very crucial resource to everyone's needs, like such as water, other things. So that's that. Heart of the Mother Crystal. The brightly shining convolution of shards that sits at the center of each Mother Crystal. When a heart shatters, so too does the mountain around it. Since time immemorial, sanctuaries have been built around the hearts for the worship and protection of these irreplaceable treasures. The Inner Sanctum. Sacred chambers in which the hearts of the Mother Crystals are enshrined, believed to have been created before the time of the Fallen. They retain a portentous air even now, long after mankind has forgotten their significance. The Deadlands. Barren waste bereft of aether, where no life stirs and magic is all but unusable. Here both earth and water are stained black, preventing any seed from quickening. In recent years the blight has spread even more widely, displacing whole nations before it, driving once peaceful fauna to violent desperation, and leaving silent devastation in its wake. Crystal. One of the most valuable materials known to mankind, thanks to its ability to channel ambient ether from the air, allowing those without an innate power to do so to cast magics. And as most Valistheans cannot live without magic, its supply and distribution is heavily regulated by governments across the Twins. A given shard can only channel a certain amount of ether before it shatters, so the need for new crystals is incessant. Though the penalties for illicit trade in crystals are severe, with demand for far outstripping supply, many still dabble in the black market. Crystal rations. Shards of crystal small enough to be held in the hand, which allow those who are not born bearers to cast magics. The nations of the Twins see such shards mined from the Mother Crystals and distributed to the populace, so that every man and woman of good character, bearers, criminals, other undesirables not included, might enjoy the gift of magic. It is common for people to keep them about their persons in a protective case. Municipal shards. Large shards of crystals that are entrusted to towns and cities across Valisthea in order to serve the populace. Where those shards rationed out to individuals might suffice to fill a cup or light an oven, municipal shards fill wells, fire forges, and light the streets of the great cities of the Twins. Ether. The life force of the land and the source of all magic. The amount of ether a spell consumes depends on its strength, with those manifesting more potent forces over a wide area coming at a greater cost. Larger crystals can channel more ether than smaller ones, and thus can be used to cast more powerful magics. One might use a small rationed shard to grill a fish, but would require a large municipal crystal to fire a blacksmith's forge. Ethereal tolerance. The ability to resist the effects of ethereal exposure. This is higher in bearers and dominants, allowing them to survive concentrations of ether that would turn any human who lacks their gift. Some animals, including chocobos, also have a natural resistance to the effects of ether, but one of the many reasons why the birds are so beloved across the twins. Pools of concentrated ether that form on the land's surface, thought to be caused by an imbalance in its diffusion beneath. Though ether is usually invisible at flood level concentrations, it takes on a blue glow. Those with a natural ethereal tolerance can survive exposure to a flood, at least for a short time. But most living things will eventually succumb to its effects, losing their minds and turning akashic. Magic. The art of channeling ether to make one's imagination manifest. This can take the aspect of one of the 8 elements, fire, water, wind, earth, ice, thunder, light, and dark, or more rarely be unaspected. While bearers and dominants can cast spells at will, others will require a crystal to do so. Magic is a part of everyday life for the people of Valisthea, making it all but unlivable when they are deprived of its gift. The crystal's curse, though. The price bearers and dominants pay for channeling ether through their bodies, the gradual petrification of their flesh. It does not affect those who use a crystal to cast magics, beginning with a stiffness, an ache in the extremities. As the curse progresses, limbs are rendered immobile and the pain unbearable. At last, the victim turns completely to stone and their body crumbles into dust. There is no known cure. Magic barriers. Some dominants have the ability to call upon a part of their icon's power to summon a ward, a nigh-impervious barrier that no magic nor matter can cross. However, its maintenance requires a continuous channeling of ether through the summoner's flesh, taking a heavy toll upon them. The larger the barrier, the greater the burden. First shield. Title granted to the mightiest and most stalwart shield of the Roseiryu army. The first shield is entrusted with the personal protection of the dominant of the Phoenix and is gifted a portion of the icon's power over flame, a boon known as the Blessing of the Phoenix. The Blessing of the Phoenix, the boon Joshua bestowed upon his brother upon Clive's ordination as first shield, allowing him to wield fire-aspected magic without a crystal. It has long been custom in Roseiryu for the dominant of the Phoenix to share a part of their power in this way, performing this rite of rejuvenation upon those they appoint as their protectors that they might serve them better. Dominant. Those within whom sleeps the power of an icon, though they look and think no differently to any other man or woman, they can not only cast elemental magics without crystal, but also transform themselves into beasts of world-shattering strength at any moment, a quality for which they are honored, worshipped, and feared by the realm over. Though they look and think no differently to any other man or woman, they cannot only cast elemental magics without a crystal, but also transform themselves into beasts of world-shattering strength at any moment. There is only ever one dominant for each icon, a new dominant only awakening after the previous dies. Some awaken at birth, while others are chosen later in life. But once one is chosen, one's life changes forever. Excuse me. Icon. Magical beings of godlike strength who dwell within human hosts, known as dominants, only emerging when the dominant primes. History records 8 icons in total, each with a unique elemental affinity. It is commonly held that 2 icons of the same element cannot coexist, but as none has ever witnessed all of these rare creatures together, the conjecture is yet to be proved. History records 8 icons in total, each with a unique elemental affinity, one warden each of fire, water, thunder, ice, wind, earth, light, and darkness. The common belief that two icons of the same element cannot coexist was shaken by the appearance of a second icon of fire during the Imperial attack on Phoenix Gate. Priming, the act of a dominant transforming their living flesh into that of their icon dominants, most often prime during times of war, using the immense strengths of their icons to turn tides of battle, though it is usually done deliberately, the dominant remaining in control of the icon, even when primed. On occasion, a dominant will lose control of their powers and see their icon run riot. Priming does not require a continual draw on aether, though. It is rather maintained by the constant channeling of the vast quantities of ether imbued within the dominant's own body. This allows dominants to remain primed even when they enter the ethereal deadless lands. Aetherless deadlands. But also results in Crystal's curse taking a heavy toll on them with every act of priming. We've already gone over this one, but semi-priming, the act of a dominant calling upon a part of their icon's power without fully transforming into the legendary beast itself. It does not require nearly as much aether as to fully prime, taking less of a toll on the dominant's flesh. Upon semi-priming, the host takes on some aspects of their icon, sprouting wings or becoming clad in stone. Bearer. A person with the power to cast magics without a crystal. In Valisthea, men and women who awaken as bearers are enslaved. They are marked with a brand upon their cheek and used as tools, a cheaper alternative to the scarce and precious shards. This system of slavery has persisted for centuries, and has become so ingrained in Valisthean life that few take pity upon the bearer's plight, seeing them as less than human. Being branded with the mark on their cheek that leads some to call them by the pejorative moniker branded, though their powers do not begin to approach those of the almighty dominants. They too suffer from the crystal's curse, gradually turning to stone over a lifetime of channeling ether for others. Bearers forced to fight, so a branded soldier. Bearers forced to fight for the nations that enslaved them, able to cast powerful magics, yet entirely disposable. They are often placed on the front lines in battle, or assigned to highly dangerous scouting or assassination missions. To stymie the urge to flee, the penalty for desertion is death, and soldiers are encouraged to keep a close watch on each other to prevent others from doing so. The brand upon a soldier's cheek presenting an additional obstacle, and so most follow their orders, turning steadily to stone with each draw on the aether, to lose one's life to the curse, being lauded as a hero's death. The brand. The mark applied to the cheeks of bearers, identifying them as something other than human. The great nations of Valisthea have a long-standing accord to brand their bearers in this way, that the slaves might be traded across borders. Sorry. So, newborn babes are checked at birth, those who are found to be bearers being branded and taken into the custody of the state. Rarely, bearers evade this test, either because their parents hide them, the testers are lax in their duties, or their powers do not awaken until later. Yet most do not remain unbranded for long. Brand removal. The painstaking process of slicing away the bearer's brand so that no mark remains. Tarja, the hideaway's physicker, has mastered the procedure, though it still entails a good deal of pain and of risk indeed. The brand is written in poison ink, that any attempt to remove it should result in death. Given this, many choose to forego the process, even though their brand precludes them from ever leaving the hideaway. A common pejorative term for bearers marked with the brand. Newborn babes are tested at birth, and those found to have the knack are branded on the cheek and taken into the custody of the state. Slave masters. Those who own and manage bearer slaves. A bearer must always obey the orders of his or her master, and are largely forbidden from acting independently, even from speaking without express permission when it is necessary to relinquish supervision of a bearer, such as when dispatching one on an errand. Masters will often affix the emblem of their house or business to the slave's clothing, that they are not mistaken for an escapee. The liberation of bearers. That which Sid and his allies strive to do, save bearers from slavery. To this end, they gather information about masters who most mistreat their property, that they might focus the rescue efforts on those most in need. Freed bearers are brought back to the safety of the hideaway, and though many are unsure what to do with their newfound freedom, the combination of a warm welcome, warm food, and a warm bed helps to calm their cares. The Fallen, an ancient yet highly advanced civilization, whose relics can be found across the length and breadth of Valisthea. The material from which these relics are constructed is far sturdier than steel, and cannot be worked by modern methods, so the people of the modern day have elected to build inside and around them instead. Said to be the remains of airships that once soared through the skies, can be found across the length and breadth of Valisthea. Sid's hideaway is but one of the many settlements to take a fallen ruin as its foundation, taking advantage of the sturdiness of the ceramics, which are stronger than steel. They are not, however, immune to the passage of time, and so the hideaway is in need of constant repairs. Airship! Legend has it that the people of the Fallen once sailed through the skies in the bellies of these ships, though all now lie shattered and silent on the surface below. The town of Lostwing is built around such a ruin. The men and women of the present day are wont to repurpose these ruins for their own uses, both the village of Lostwing and Clive's hideaway in Benamir being built around the wreckage of a fallen airship. The Arete Stone, a mysterious ceramic tablet that stands in the hideaway, of a similar construction to other relics of the fallen, yet seemingly not a part of the airship proper. Its imposing appearance suggests some important function that has been lost to time. Whatever strange secrets lie within it, it seems to react to Clive's presence and urges him to unlock his hidden potential. The Obelisk, ancient relics found across Valisthea. Their construction closely resembles the airships of the fallen, but unlike them, they do not appear to have fallen from the sky, rather to have stood in place since time immemorial. They illuminate when Clive approaches, though for what reason it is unknown. After once being lit, they continue to shine with the same blue glow night and day, making them ideal for use as waypoints. The Continental Accord, an international pact made at the dawn of the present era, in which such matters as the treatment of bearers and the establishment of a realm-wide currency were laid out. It formed the basis of much of Valisthean society as it stands today, including the branding of bearers and their status as non-persons. It also put in place a universal calendar, making a symbolic fresh start for mankind, albeit one which put magic users at a crippling disadvantage. Roseiryu National Anthem, perhaps the most beloved ditty in the duchy. The Roseiryu National Anthem, which was written for the occasion of the new nation's founding, and is filled with patriotic imagery of rolling meadows, rising flames, and stirring song. It was oft heard raising the rafters of ducal alehouses, particularly close to closing time, where disputes over the lyrics to the less practiced third verse would occasionally end in fisticuffs. Frostwolf! A rare breed of wolf from the frozen North Territories that it is said to be able to conjure magics. An ancient fable from the region prominently features a frostwolf by the name of Fenrir, who is companion to the Queen of the Snow, most likely an allusion to the dominant of Shiva, and defended her not with tooth and claw, but with bolts of ice. Hi, Tolga. Ancient mural. A wall painting found in the depths of the apothecary under Phoenix Gate. Who created it and for what purpose is unknown, but the celestial being in the center suggests some connection to a long-lost region. The founder. Fear and uncertainty reigned in those early years following the sins of Dysmachus. I don't know if anyone can pronounce that properly, please tell me. Not wanting to further incur the wrath of the heavens, the few who survived the fall took to wandering the land, spurning magic and staying to the shadows, and so they lived for decades. One man, however, grew tired of this life, if it could be called that, and after bidding his companions farewell, climbed a grassy knoll overlooking a forest of beech and alder. Here he gathered a pile of rubble and used it to build a humble shelter in which he spent the night. The next morning, however, instead of abandoning his work, as was his people's wont, he gathered more rocks, adding to the structure until the shelter had become a shack. Thus he continued for days, weeks, until the shack had become a home. At first, those few wanderers who passed the knoll would shun him, cursing the man under their breaths for his hubris. But as his estate grew, and one building became two, and two to three, the people began to slow their steps, and it was not long before some took to joining him on that knoll, gathering stones, building new lives, new destinies. This they did without magics or machines, without boon or blessing. They relied on naught but their hands, their backs, their wills, and each other, and slowly house gave way to village, village to town, and town to nation. The man would one day die, as all men do, but those who remained continued his legacy, expanded upon it, and though his name was eventually forgotten, his spirit lives on to this day in the hearts of all Roseirians. Legend of the Founder, Moss the Chronicler. The Cullings. After being made viceroy of the newly annexed Roseirian territory, the capital B, Empress Annabella, quietly established a host of loyal imperial soldiers, the Black Shields, to maintain order. Though branded as keepers of the peace, their true purpose is to carry out what has come to be known as cullings, or brutal massacres of provincial bearers. And those who show them sympathy, the killing is swift and indiscriminate, with the shields dispatched serving as judge, jury, and executioner. And the chaos left in their wake is usually enough to deliver entire settlements to ruin. The Akashic. The irreversible change brought about by a living being's overexposure to aether. Creatures are stripped of any intelligence or sense of self they may once have had, and become suffused with life force, usually manifesting as extreme strength and aggression. Flora can also turn, resulting in their twisted overgrowth. Those with ethereal tolerance, however, such as dominants and bearers, are less likely to turn Akashic. Beastmen. A somewhat derogatory nomen given the collective group of demi-humanoid beings that includes goblins, orcs, and minotaurs, among others. Beastmen tend to differ from most wild creatures in demonstrating a distinct intelligence, possessing the capacity for spoken and sometimes even written language, as well as complex tool building, and many have developed unique, albeit simple, civilizations of their own. With civilization, however, will always come the desire to expand, and it is this ambition that had resulted in countless clashes with humanity over the centuries. Beasts. Animals whose evolution has been warped by exposure to aether, some gaining the ability to cast magics. Unlike bearers, however, they seem to have developed little ethereal tolerance, so it is not uncommon to encounter Akashic beasts in the vicinity of aether floods. While wild beasts are sometimes tamed by humans for use in warfare, the soldiers of Sunbreck having a particular fondness for those descendants of the ancient dragons. Echoes. Strange clockwork constructs often encountered in fallen ruins. The question of whether or not they are truly alive is open to debate, as they do not appear to require water, nor do they feed on the flesh of their victims as beasts do, and seemingly exist solely to protect their habitat from intruders. All echoes are encased in protective plating that is made from the same material as the ruins, and thus cannot be destroyed, though repeated blows will cause individual plates to dislodge, eventually causing the entire construct to collapse on itself. Dating back to antiquity, the term Egi has historically been used to describe those ethereal entities that can be conjured by dominants. Egis are capable of casting potent magics corresponding to the elemental alignment of their creators. Though unquestionably formidable, they will fade immediately should the dominant who gave them being happen to be slain. Ultima's thralls, twisted, glowing blue creatures that awaited Clive and Jill deep within the Phoenix Gate to try and prevent them from gaining the innermost recesses of the Pottery. Sid the Outlaw, leader of the faction believed responsible for the shattering of Drake's head in 873. With this single act of infamy, Sid's name quickly spread to the four corners of Valisthea and beyond. Alliance. Those who do not call the Hideaway their home, but nevertheless lend their strength to Sid's cause. There are many in the Twins who balk at the persecution of bearers, but cannot find within them the courage to oppose it. Knowing what fate awaits them should their sympathies be exposed, others take that risk, aiding Sid's bearer liberation efforts with information sent by Stolas, monetary assistance, or direct action. Bard. Traveling minstrels who journey from place to place, performing in hostries across Valisthea to the accompaniment of lute and lyre. They provide not only entertainment but information on the state of the realm, oft singing of significant events and important personages. The Hideaway has its own resident bard, that the illiterate amongst its residents might remain informed. Astrologer, members of the Gregorian clergy who divine the future from the movements of the heavens. It has long been custom for the astrologers of the imperial court to share their auguries only with the emperor, granting them significant political influence, provided, that is, that the emperor of the day shares Sylvester's inclination to heed their advice. The Einherjar. The flagship of the Waloder Navy, also known as the Black Galleon, alongside the Royal Cavalry, it is the pride of Walode, and it is capable of swiftly delivering elite troops onto enemy soil to make war in the name of the mighty Odin. Crystal Fetters, a restraining device for bearers and dominants that use precisely arranged and activated shards of crystal to disrupt the flow of ether through their flesh, thus preventing them from priming or casting magics. So valuable are the materials from which they are made, and so rare the skill required to craft them. There are only very few specimens in existence, and they are only employed when absolutely necessary. Marks. Emblems that Sid's allies distribute to those in their circle of trust. It is common for the rich and powerful of Valisthea to pin such marks to the bearers in their possession, that the slaves might go about their master's business unmolested. Orchestrion, a curious clock contraption that is able to perform several different musical compositions at the flick of a switch. For those who come from 14, we all know where that comes from. Metia. Hello, you beautiful bluebird. Once again, a reference from 14. If you know it, you know it. The burning red star that sits beneath the moon, folklore ascribes to Metia the role of message bearer to the moon. It is common custom across Valisthea to wish upon the star that one's heartfelt desires might be conveyed to the heavens and beyond. Give that a moment. Think about it. The wyvern tail, the elegant white flower that is a symbol of the Holy Empire of Simbrek. The missives, the second simplest method of long-distance communication and used in Valisthea. After whispering one's message to a traveling trader and trusting in the strength of their memory, though letters are more prone to interception than stoluses, they have the advantage that they can be sent to those one does not know. Their major disadvantage, that the majority of the common folk of the twins can neither read nor write, limiting their exchange to those of a certain level of education. Efforts are underway to offer such an education to the bearers of the hideaway, and many are already more confident readers and writers than their former masters. Notorious marks. While afield on their expeditionary excursions, the curse breakers will often learn of creatures, or somewhat unsurprisingly humans, that for reasons varying from the loss of natural habitat or a lack of food to overexposure to aether, have begun to exhibit uncharacteristically violent behavior. Due to the threat they pose to the realm and her peaceable inhabitants, these terrors are deemed notorious marks, and bounty placed on their heads. The Journal of Moss. The Annals of Moss in the Chronicler, a scholar of Valisthean history, noted not only for his singular insight, but for the lyricism of his writing, an exceptionalism that earned him the enmity of his fellow scholars and drove him from public life. Such were the misgivings towards him, that only a handful of copies of the journal were ever produced, making the tome a prized find among collectors. The Saint and Sectary, a beloved Valisthean fable, wherein the good knight Sir Crandall of Camelot, servant of Saint Sybil the Unshod, does battle against the evil warlock Madhu, the story of a favourite of the young Clive Rosfield, and he would often act out scenes with his uncle, the young knight naturally taking the role of Sir Crandall, and his rambunctious uncle Byron making a convincing Madhu. Mythos, the name by which Ultima addresses Clive. It appears to be his title for the vessel for limitless power, that he means to make of the young Lord Marquess, but to what end he requires such a thing, only Ultima knows. Vessel, a name that the being known as Ultima gives to Clive. It appears to be synonymous with mythos. And now, finally, we have the bestiary. We already know of Ifrit, so on to Phoenix. The Warden of Fire whose strength resides within Joshua Rosfield, heir to the Roseiryan throne, the Phoenix is always born in the ducal line, and is worshipped by the populace, not least because its flames of both destruction and regeneration have delivered the duchy from disaster many times over. The Phoenix first awakened among the motes of fire, an ancient tribe who dwelled in the western reaches of storm. The careful preservation of bloodlines among the Roseiryan nobility ensured that its dominant would always be born in the ducal line. Shiva, Warden of Ice, whose appearance on the battlefield makes her enemy's blood run cold. The Iron Blood sent Shiva against the Republican forces in the Nysa Defile, where she dueled against Titan, the icon of Earth. The Warden of Ice, of whom Jo Warwick is the current dominant, with her glacial aspect and ability to conjure boreal boulders from the ether. Shiva's appearance on the battlefield makes her enemy's blood run cold. Ramu, the Warden of Thunder, whose power most lately awakened with Sidolphus Telemann, the icon is known the realm over as a symbol of judgment, no doubt inspired by its sage mien and scepter, with which its summon is its levin bolts. Folklore has it that not only are dominants of Ramu blessed with the command of lightning, they are also granted a deeper understanding of the true nature of the world. Dominants of the icon most often emerge among descendants of the Motes of Thunder, a tribe who once dwelled in the lands of Central Ash, lands that the kingdom of Woloed now lays claim to, mayhap in part due to this tribe's comparatively advanced learning. Ramu is associated with wisdom and judgment to this day. Garuda, the Warden of Wind, who Benedicta transformed into during her ill-fated flight from the Empire. It takes the form of a fearful harpy, summoning storms and tearing into the flesh of its prey with hawk-like talons. Such is the icon's frenzy for destruction that even allies of the dominant of the day are wont to begin with fleeing the battlefield when dark clouds gather overhead. Its dominant is most often born among the descendants of the Motes of Wind, an ancient tribe that once dwelled on the lands spanning the Strait of Altha, what is now the Crystalline Dominion. Titan, the Warden of Earth, of whom Hugo Kubka is the current dominant. He takes the form of stone-skinned giant whose granite fists shake the earth with every might pummeled. Titan's dominant awakens among the people of the Damakian deserts. Blech. It's very easy to get those two words mixed up. Deserts. But anyways, you get the point. The recipient of his strength being granted great power and status by the Republic in return for a commitment to protect the nation in times of war. Bahamut, the Warden of Light, whose power dwells within Dion the Sage, Prince of Sunbreck. In the Holy Empire, the Gregorian faithful hold dragons to be sacred creatures, and Bahamut the most sacred of them all. Because of this, as well as the protection it grants them, the icon is loved and revered by the imperial populace. And then there's Odin. We already went over him, but once again, the Warden of Darkness, who rides into battle atop his spectral steed, and whose black blade is said to be sharp enough to split the various seas in twain. His latest dominant, King Barnabas of Woloed. Typhon, seemingly drawn to the destruction of the heart of Drake's head, Ultima emerged from a terror in reality wearing the skin of Typhon, a withered and wizened colossus, and drew Clive into a space between worlds wherein the ethereal entity might test his worth as a vessel. Tirada, an ethereal conjuration summoned forth by Benedicta Harmon when Clive encountered the dominant of Wind near Lostwing. Despite their size, the creature's heavily feathered wings did not seem to hamper its movement, which was disconcertingly nimble. More so than speed, though, it was Tirada's array of powerful magics that set it apart from lesser foes. Suparna, an ethereal creation of Benedicta Harmon, dominant of Wind. When summoned in Cair Norvent alongside her twin Tirada, the pair worked in tandem to attempt to overwhelm Cid and Clive, wielding a panoply of potent magics and deadly ethereal assaults. Ethereal. Sorry. Anyways, liquid flame. An ever-shifting mass of living flame that rose from the fiery pulse of Drake's breath, in what appeared to be a response to an unwarranted trespass into the Mother Crystal's inner sanctum. Possessed with both the swiftness and temper of an untamed wildfire, the creature rained fury down upon the intruders, wielding the molten lifeblood of sacred Mount Jostanus like it were but fistfuls of mud. Then there's the goblins. We went over those, but once again, a common species of beastmen. While at first glance they may seem like mindless predators, goblins have their own unique language, and are skilled enough to both cast magics and make rudimentary tools and weapons. While mostly found on the continent of Storm, the spread of the Blight has forced them to find homes nearby human settlements, a move that oft ends in misunderstanding and bloodshed. Gigas, as they are oft witnessed in the presence of goblins, many believe these lumbering brutes to be goblins themselves, albeit ones that have grown to prodigious size. Scholars, however, deny these claims and insist the two tribes are independent and their relationship a symbiotic one, with the Gigas providing the protection to the slighter goblins who, in turn, provide the craftless giants with sundry arms and vestures such as the charnel carcanets created from the bones of their victims. The spread of the blight has seen both tribes impinge on human territory with increased frequency, and recent spottings have put them as close to civilizations as 3 reeds in Roseiryu. The Orcs. A warlike yet surprisingly organized species of beastmen native to Ash, they have long been in conflict with the Willodes over control of the continent and currently count the bulk of its eastern half as their own. However, the encroaching blight continues to eat into the amount of livable land, making the fight for more territory ever more vital. Minotaurs. Towering beastmen that combine the heads of oxen with bodies eerily human, minotaurs are abnormally aggressive, a trait that suggests that little man remains within the beast, and roam the grassy meadows of Roseiryu, doling out violence seemingly indiscriminately with their crude yet massive clubs. Despite their obvious danger, however, hunters still actively seek out these menaces for their lustrous manes, which often command exorbitant prices at market. Vampire thorns. While most flora is thought of as stationary, roots binding them to the soil upon which their matron's seed first fell, there are some species which have an uncanny capacity for locomotion. Species such as northern storm's vampire thorn. Instead of drawing nutriment from the earth, these pitcher-like plants hide themselves in the undergrowth where they wait for prey to happily stumble by, at which time they rush out, emitting a foul cloud of mind-numbing pollen and vicious sap to disorient the victim while they strike and strangulate it with a pair of frighteningly long vines. Everyone's favorite, the Morbles. The foul cocktail of bile and partially digested prey that accumulates within these giant carnivorous plants. Bellies make their breath so spectacularly rancid that it can be used as a weapon to repel would-be attackers. Morbles favor more humid climes, such as those found on the volcanic isles of the Iron Kingdom. However, the spread of the blight has driven the mobile flora to cooler areas such as the swamps of Roseiryu. Hornets. Most commonly found in woodlands of Roseiryu and western Sunbrook, hornets are often mistaken for birds due to their prodigious size. This mistake, however, can prove deadly, for the overgrown insects are extremely territorial and highly aggressive, and will attack aught that might venture near their hive, using stingers laden with a poison potent enough to subdue creatures as large as a wyvern. Black widows. Unlike many arachnids, which use gossamer webbing to ensnare their victims, black widows prefer instead to cling silently to trees and cliffs and await the passing of an animal below, at which time they leap down and assault their prey with hooked limb and caustic spit. They prefer dark, cool environs, and such as rarely seen in Valisthea's southern deserts. Megalocrabs. Making a habitat of waters both fresh and brackish, these goodly crustaceans spend most of their time buried in the mud, where they warm their sanguine humors as they wait for a potential meal to wander by. Since the time of the founder, the peoples of Roseiryu have hunted megalocrab for its sweet, succulent flesh and creamy tomali. The species having long been known amongst the small folk as fire crab for the bright red color and phoenix-like patterns which emerge on the shells after boiling. Crayclaws. Found mostly in and around the lakes of rivers of Sunbrook and Roseiryu, these deadly predators are equipped with scissor-like pincers with which to dismember and eviscerate their prey. If that were not enough, the creatures take in water from their habitat to create highly corrosive juices in their bellies, which they then spit out onto their victim's flesh to soften it, making it easier to consume. Chocobos! Everyone's favorite steeds of the people of Valisthea. While they are mainly bred for riding, some are used to pull wagons, and some are even eaten, but the boldest and bravest are put forward for use by the military. They are intelligent and fiercely loyal creatures and tend to tolerate only their master's attention. Wild chocobos are no less vigilant and will readily attack anyone who they perceive to be a threat. Anyone who isn't carrying a fistful of Gaishal greens, that is. Raptors. Though still widely believed by the common folk of Sunbreck to be the descendants of dragons on account of their leathery wings, meagerness of plumage, and distinct ability to spit fire, learned scholars have long since concluded that these deceptively reptilian creatures are none other than birds of prey, which, over countless centuries of hunting creatures on the ground, have simply lost their capacity for flight. Vultures. Opportunistic avians that, like many other predatory birds, prefer to stealthily swoop down on foes from above and skewer them with their razor-sharp beaks. Though they are thought to primarily feed on carrion, traveling in large flocks in search of the dead and dying, it is not uncommon for vultures to attack living prey when times are lean. If you happen to hear their eerily human-like caws, squawks, or warbles, it is best to find cover, and quickly. Wolves. Individually lacking in both strength and speed to subdue prey of any considerable size, wolves will instead hunt in packs, communicating amongst one another as men might, so as to overwhelm their victims, and while forever wary of other creatures, some breeds may have been found to be more willing to form bonds with humankind, and thus can be found everywhere from traveling menageries to elite infantry units in the Imperial Army. Following rumors of children being mauled by wolves, the duchy ordered a mass culling of the beasts, which saw their numbers in Roseiryu reduced to almost none. Panthers. Archetypal predators known best for their brilliant spotted coats and proclivity to lives of solitude, as is the case with most felines. The animals are severely strong-willed, and efforts by the Republican Army to harness their inborn speed and ferocity for use on the battlefield has been met with varying degrees of success. Coyotes. Sleek-bodied creatures with coats of silken fur. Coyotes are anything but soft, and will attack their prey viciously with tooth, claw, and even whisker, the latter of which can be used to generate powerful bolts of heart-stopping venom. Though native to the arid climes of Dalmatia, coyotes have been known to wander far in search of new territory, and rumors place them as far north as the Dragon's Eyrie and Sunbreck. Bighorns. Found to graze primarily in the emerald meadows of Rosaria or the windswept savannas of Dalmatia, bighorns are easily recognized by the eponymous growths, the length of which can oft exceed several score hands, that jut sidewise from their crowns. These horns, as well as their hard-wearing hides, are prized throughout Valisthea, and can be bought and sold at marketplaces all over the realm. Caution, however, is recommended when hunting the creatures, as they are highly territorial and will charge relentlessly at anything that might stray into their line of sight. Griffins. Fantastical abominations of nature, upon which the crown and wings of an eagle have been fused to the legs and loins of a ferocious land cat. They hunt their prey on high, circling a victim unseen before, descending at terrible speeds, claws first to tear its throat. Should the prey prove more formidable, I cannot English today, I swear. Griffins have also been known to call upon the very winds of both slice and suffocate the quarry. Fortunately, these predators rarely descend from their mountain lairs, and sightings are few and far between. The Adamantua. Enormous creatures with nigh impermeable and oddly fertile shells that play host to diverse flora that provide the painfully conspicuous reptiles with much needed camouflage in the bogs and fens they call their homes. At a glance, these lumbering giants may not appear much of a threat, but at the first sign of danger they will retract their heads and limbs and whip themselves into frenetic spins that have been known to flatten their entire homes. Dragonets. Lesser dragons known for their nimbleness in flight. Those specimens of the Samberquois subspecies known more commonly as the worm, or worm, are somewhat easily tamed, and as such widely employed in battle by the imperial legions. Avises. Middling dragons whose membranous wings are attached to their forelegs rather than their torsos, and in the end hook-like talons used to rip apart the flesh of their prey. Their abundance in northwestern storm eventually resulted in mass domestication by the Imperial Legion, which alongside the spreading of the blight, drove remaining populations south into the deserts of Dalmatia, where they now struggle for supremacy with existing species. Fafnir of the North. An ancient dragon adapted exclusively for life on the ground and as such is encased in a thick, bony armor, though its kin once claimed dominion over the northern territories. The spread of the blight inevitably forced this once gentle giant south in search of prey. Bombs. Floating masses of self-contained flame found across both storm and ash. These creatures lack the flesh with which we associate the typical fauna, leading scholars of the natural world to deposit that they are not descended of any beast, but rather ungodly creations of the fallen. By suppressing their internal furnaces, bombs can allow their bodies to cool and harden until appearing not more than simple stones unworthy of remark. It is in this form that they hunt their prey, waiting until an unfortunate soul has stumbled upon their place of rest, before rising from the ground to spew forth fiery gouts of death. Oddly, should the prey fight back, the bomb will not flee, but rather combust spontaneously, sacrificing its own life to save the flock. Flan. Ooh. Okay, I actually never noticed how ugly these things look. Oh my god. Like, in other games they look freaking adorable as hell, but they did a number with this one. I'm sorry. Square Enix, you overdid yourself with this one. Massive amorphous beings capable of bending and distorting their gelatinous forms into almost any shape imaginable, making them not only notoriously difficult to find, but almost entirely impossible to kill. As most cuts merely melt back into the existing flesh within a matter of moments, these creatures can be found in all corners of Valisthea. Though their heightened sensitivity to the subtleties of their environs means that their outward hue can vary wildly from region to region, hence the variety of names, Bavarios, Gelato, and Fool, by which they are known. The Ahriman. With their single unblinking eye, these winged horrors ever scan the horizon, seeking their next victims, using their singular ability to bend the very air around themselves and leap across great distances to take prey unawares. Those few who manage to survive this preliminary assault, however, are soon faced with a second horror, a crippling curse whispered from the lips of an abyssal maw, leaving them with but moments to lament their fates. Iron giants, oversized suits of armor animated by lost fallen magics, deceptively swift despite their size, they wield both sword and shield skillfully and effectively, while the otherworldly plate which surrounds their vulnerable cores provide them with a nigh impenetrable defense. Stoluses! Isn't it a cute little adorable owl? Look how cute it is. Owls capable of transmitting the thoughts of others. Okay, that's actually pretty cool, but I think that's because of the crystal on their forehead. Specifically those with whom they are attuned in response to an ancient incantation, their lithified third eyes store these thoughts in the form of aether, allowing them to be passed on as and when required, though only to the intended recipient. Stoluses are mainly kept by royals, nobles, and other figures of authority for the purpose of sending secret or urgent messages, and are seldom available to common folk. The incantation, Omia lost elan tu isag elith, can be loosely translated as, My will is now thy burden, ne'er cleft our bond shall be. So that is pretty much it. That's pretty much it for Harpocrates and his lore for everything that is thus forth available. But until we run into more things, I will go ahead and make another video for part 5. But there has been an update to the game, and I'm glad that I didn't finish the story yet, because there are usually updates that a lot of people normally wait for and wish for. But let's go take a look at it, because it is available in the base. So we're gonna go down here, and then y'all remember this little training specimen, the Eret stone? Yeah, you touch that. Woo! In we go. There's the Hall of Virtue that you can train in, the arcade mode, the stage replay. This hasn't been unlocked yet, but now we have the appearance feature, which now is an option in the game to change the outward appearance of Clive or any other party member, which is basically also the appearance of Clive's weapon that you get to hardly see in the story, because like it almost looks similar to what he would normally have, but it's changed now, of where you can now previously have the obtained weapon while maintaining the current weapon stats. So here's his normal look, right? There is now the burnt black. I honestly love this look. It's actually pretty cool. And now we have Jill. Here's her normal look. And that is the look of Snow White. Now, if you want to go ahead and apply this, by all means, go ahead. But for me, as clean as it looks, I like the normal look better. And then we have Torgal, who, of course, everyone loves and knows as a little puppy. But he has an amazing icy blue look now, and that is just super amazing. So I kind of want to put him in this currently, because of the fact that we now know that he is a frost wolf. And then we have Ambrosia, our beloved chocobo. Beautiful white chocobo that a lot of people adore. But now she has the Roseiryu gold barding. I mean, if you want to go ahead and put Ambrosia in the armor, go ahead, but for me, I prefer the normal look between Jill and Ambrosia. But now we also have the weapons. The Imperial Infantry Blade. When a bearer dies in service of the Samberqua Imperial Army, it is more likely his sword, not his body, will be retrieved from the battlefield, that it might be provisioned to the next unwilling volunteer without additional cost to the crown. A broadsword. Even in the hands of an untrained soldier, the broadsword can prove a deadly weapon, which is why it remains a popular choice for armies across the Twins. It also doesn't hurt that the pig iron blades are extremely simple and inexpensive to forge. Longsword. If you can swear you have seen this blade somewhere before, it is probably because you have. Longswords are some of the most common weapons in the realm, so it is no surprise the hot-tempered gate guard barking at you to be gone also has one strapped to his back. The Gaia Blade. While common on the southern continent, worship of the land itself as a deity is almost unheard of in Valisthea. That, however, has not stopped the import of fine steel blades blessed by Gaian presbyters under the claim that they are deadlier and more durable than those forged in the Twins. The Platinum Sword. Platinum makes for a poor blade, being too soft to withstand rigorous use in battle and too expensive for the common soldier to afford. It does, however, allow for ornate designs on crossguard, hilt, and pommel, where the rare metal is most often employed. The Coral Sword. Coral, while razor sharp, is also painfully brittle, which is also why it's used in all but the most primitive of weapons. It's almost unheard of. This sword of unknown provenance, however, is possessed of remarkable rigidity, while maintaining an edge that rivals that of Odin's blade. Stormcry. So spurred by her cries did wind become storm. The Flame Tongue. With a tongue of flame spake he the words of destruction. The Laven Bolt. From heaven on high, far did his bolt fall to deliver justice. The Grindstone. And when he lifted his fists, beneath them was found naught but dust. And last but not least, the Invictus. One of a set of 7 swords said to have been forged in the flames of Mount Drastanus, Invictus has been passed down through generations for use by the Archduke's family and his closest shields. Archduke Elwin presented Invictus to Rodney Murdoch on the day he was promoted to Lord Commander of the Ducal Army. Now, which weapon I want to go with? I would probably say either the Flame Tongue, the Coral Sword, the Stormcry, or the Lavenbolt, because all the other ones are like typical, but because we're taking on the name of Sid, I would go with the Lavenbolt. But for now, that is everything, folks. Until the next time. Bye-bye for now.